America has spent years raising trade barriers and disrupting global supply chains. Now, Trump is suspending those same barriers because US farmers can no longer afford the fertilizer they need to grow food. Just last week, he declared a food emergency and moved to rush phosphate fertilizer into the United States. The declaration allows Washington to suspend duties on imports from Morocco, which has suddenly become critical to keeping American farms operating. Morocco controls around 31% of global phosphate fertilizer market and holds roughly 70% of the world's known phosphate reserves. There are very few countries capable of replacing that supply at a scale, so once shortage became serious enough, the tariffs had to go. The Iran conflict had already cut fertilizer suppliers off for too long. Shipping costs then exploded at the same time, pushing up the price of nearly everything farmers need. American producers are now paying around 30 to 40% more for key agricultural inputs. For farms already operating on thin margin, that increase can wipe out an entire season's profit. Suspending the duties should provide some relief. Fertilizer costs could fall by roughly 10 to 20%, saving US farmers close to $2 billion each year. This is meaningful money, especially when borrowing costs becoming more expensive. Still, this looks like an emergency rollback of Trump's own trade policy. The White House placed barriers around the critical supply chain, watched the pressure build, and is now removing those barriers before the damage spreads further. Morocco could become the playbook for other essential suppliers. When Washington urgently needs a resource, tariffs suddenly become negotiable. The exemption may lower one important cost, but it cannot repair the wider damage already spreading through American agriculture. Farmers are dealing with much larger financial problem, and the numbers show how quickly it has developed. From 2023 to 2025, US farmer bankruptcies increased by around 135%. One of the main reasons was the sharp rise in interest rates. Farming depends heavily on credit, because most producers have to borrow money for land, machinery, seed, fertilizer, fuel, and other seasonal costs months before they receive any income from the harvest. When rates rise, those loans become much harder to service. A farm can still produce the same amount of food and suddenly find that the numbers no longer work because monthly payments have exploded. Then the trade war added another problem. Agriculture machinery and equipment became around 20 to 50% more expensive, partly because so many machines, replacement parts and components come from China. Farmers were already paying more for credit, fertilizer, transport and fuel. Now they also had to spend far more just to repair or replace the equipment needed to keep operating. All of these costs were rising while foreign demand was weakening. The United States has now become a net importer of food, and the agricultural trade deficit reached roughly $41 billion last year. American farm exports are losing ground because international buyers have more alternatives, and Brazil has become one of the strongest competitors, especially in major commodity markets, and it is taking business that once went to the US producers. A farmer can survive one bad season or one expensive input, but it becomes much harder when borrowing, equipment, transport, and fertilizer all rise together while overseas customers begin disappearing. That is the real problem. Washington needs to lower costs, but it also needs someone to buy the crops. And the solution Trump is now proposing is one of the strangest parts of this entire story. He wants Iran to use its own frozen money to buy American corn, wheat, and soybeans. The idea is that some Iranian assets could eventually be unfrozen, but Iran wouldn't simply regain full control over the money. Part of it would be directed toward purchases from American farmers. In other words, Washington would release Iranian funds under conditions that send the money straight back into the US economy. That would create a customer for crops that are becoming harder to sell abroad.
They have 300% inflation. They're making no money. So we're going to take some of the money and we're going to buy them. They need food. They need corn and wheat and soybeans. And we're going to have exclusively our American farmers provide that, assuming we get to the position where we should get to.
Think about the sequence here. The US goes to war with Iran, freezes Iranian assets, then considers releasing some of those funds on the condition that Iran spends them on American agricultural export. Washington would effectively control where Iranian purchasing power goes and which producers benefit from it. The customer is being created through political pressure because normal market demand is no longer strong enough. J.D. Vance has now confirmed that this farm deal is part of the negotiating agenda. The administration presents it as an agreement that helps everyone involved.
and then the money would actually go to buy American soy, American corn, and American wheat for the benefit of the Iranian people. And if Iranian assets are ever unfrozen, they're going to go to make American farmers richer and to feed the Iranian people.
From Washington's perspective, the logic is obvious. American farms are under pressure, foreign sales are weakening, and Iranian money offers a convenient way to manufacture new demand. It may be presented as a food arrangement for the Iranian population, but the economic purpose is impossible to miss. The problem is scale. Even if Tehran accepts every condition and the funds are released, Iran cannot replace the enormous agricultural customer the US has already lost, and that customer is China. Chinese purchases of US agricultural products have fallen sharply since their 2022 peak. In soybeans alone, China cut its buying by around $14 billion in a single year. Across the wider farm sector, the US lost at least $21 billion in Chinese agricultural business. That demand didn't simply disappear. A large part of it moved elsewhere, especially toward Brazil. China still needs enormous volumes of soybeans and other commodities, and Brazilian producers have become a major alternative to American farms. The proposed Iran deal operates on a much smaller level. Tehran may initially recover only around $10 to $12 billion in frozen assets, and only part of that money could realistically go toward US food purchases. Iran has other needs, and it will still judge American crops by price, quality, and the conditions attached to the deal. Iran's foreign minister has already made it clear that any agreement will depend on the terms. If US products are too expensive or the restriction becomes too demanding, Iran can simply buy food from another supplier. Even American farmers are skeptical. Negotiations could break down, the assets could remain frozen. Tehran could reject Washington's condition, and the final purchases may be too small to provide lasting relief. China is the one buyer capable of changing the picture. After the Trump summit, Beijing reportedly agreed to purchase 25 million tons of US soybeans each year. But so far, the USDA has recorded only around 50 million tons in booked orders, and not all of those bookings are confirmed as Chinese purchases. So the export drought is still here. Iran could provide a temporary injection of demand, but American agriculture needs something far bigger and far more consistent. And crops are only one part of America's dependence on foreign money. The US also needs the rest of the world to keep financing its debt and supporting demand for the dollar. The latest central bank survey shows that this support is gradually weakening. Central banks collectively plan to reduce their dollar exposure by around 3 percentage points over the long term, and that money is expected to move into other assets, especially the euro, Chinese yuan, and gold. Planned yuan holdings alone could rise by around 13%. Well, the dollar still dominates global reserves, but a survey of 90 institutions managing more than $10 trillion found that its share is projected to fall from roughly 57% today to around 52% by 2035. The reason is practical. Countries hold reserve currencies because they need them for trade. China is now the largest trading partner for around 73% of the world's countries, covering at least 151 nations. When governments and companies buy Chinese machinery, electronics, industrial equipment, and consumer goods, holding more yuan simply becomes useful. More trade is also being settled directly in yuan or local currencies, gradually reducing the need to route every transaction through the dollar. Some people will argue that higher US interest rates could reverse this trend. If inflation stays high, the Fed may begin another tightening cycle, and the dollar index could rise from around 100 toward 110. Higher rates would attract capital and support the dollar in the short term. That still doesn't stop long-term diversification. Central banks can hold fewer dollars even when the dollar becomes stronger on foreign exchange markets. The treasury market creates another problem. The 10-year yield is close to 4.5%, while CPI inflation is already around 4.2%. That leaves a real return of only about 0.3% or 30 basis points before currency risk is even considered. So, would foreign buyers really lock up their money for a decade while taking on the risk of dollar depreciation, sanctions, persistent inflation, and America's growing debt problem, all to earn a miserable 0.3% in real terms? At that point, the answer becomes obvious. And central banks are already responding to that calculation with no. Washington, however, continues to project confidence in the US growth, fiscal strength, and the future of the dollar. Scott Bessent is now presenting the most optimistic possible version of where the US economy is heading.
is what I've been saying since the Iran conflict started. We're going to get to the other side of this. Inflation's going to come back down. It's largely dominated, as you said, by gasoline. In many states, we're back to around $3.50 retailers in terms of what they want to do for consumers. And look, that we understand that previous administration, it was the worst inflation in 47, 49 years, and we were at a very high level, but we had before April, we had seen real wage growth for working Americans every month during President Trump's presidency.
The US is still adding roughly $5 billion to the national debt every day, and there is no convincing plan to bring the structural deficit under control. Economic growth remains heavily dependent on government borrowing, while Washington is being forced to remove trade barriers just to protect critical domestic industries. That makes the promises of lasting fiscal strength difficult to take seriously. Gold gives us a much clearer picture of how major institutions are preparing. Around 82% of central banks now hold physical gold, up from 71% last year. About 30% of them plan to increase their allocations over the next 12 to 24 months. Central banks also expect gold to trade between $5,000 and $6,000 an ounce by the middle of the next year. So institutional investors managing more than $10 trillion now see it as a permanent and growing part of their portfolios. So even another period of strong dollar is unlikely to stop the buying. Besant, of course, can continue projecting confidence, and higher rates may support the dollar for a while. But central banks are making long-term decisions based on trade, debt, inflation, and political risk. Their money is gradually moving toward a more diversified system. The Iran farm deal fits into that wider picture. Washington is trying to recover lost export demand at the same time that global institutions are reducing their dependence on US assets. So do you think the Iran farm deal can provide real relief? Or is it only a temporary attempt to replace the demand America's lost from China? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.